how long do you stick with Russ to knock off the rust that one would think comes with not having played?
If he's really bad in the first quarter, he is going to be booed mercilessly.
Now, I don't know about that. We will see. So that is the pressure of that situation. Rodgers' pressure would be just he's going to fall to 2-5 in one of his few remaining seasons as a quarterback in the NFL. So that's the pressure there. But it's two big moments that would be happening if Russ starts, of two situations that are playing out on the field in real live regular season action for the first time in week 7 in front of the whole country, with seasons, on the line, certainly for the Jets, and certainly a decision for Pittsburgh that will be parsed and second guessed. Good news for them is they got a coach who doesn't care about that.
That's true.
So that's my answer to your pressure. I'm not going to go with the pressure because I hate those questions. Joining us right now is Chris Long of the Green Light Podcast. Who's under the most pressure Sunday night, Chris? Is it Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers? Chris, it's true. It's true.
I mean, I honestly, I was listening to what y'all were saying. I came out of that Pittsburgh game and said, yeah, Fields didn't play well, but I think Mike Tomlin, he's used to flying close to the sun, being 500. Like, they're a 4-2 football team. Are we talking about Russell? I'm not, no tone here.
So here we go. Let's break news to Chris Long, host of the Green Light with Chris Long podcast. So the news breaking, and let's get the soundbite ready to play it for Chris Long as well, from Mike Tomlin. My colleague from NFL Network, Tom Pelissero, saying that now that Russ is healthy, they're going to, in Pittsburgh, give him some first-team reps. And Mike Tomlin was asked point blank, does that mean he might start Sunday night? And he was as blunt as he normally is. Hit it.
We're going to determine that as we get closer to tomorrow. We got some more strategic meetings today, but I'll acknowledge that Russ proved his health last week, man, and we're looking hard at it this week. It is up for consideration.
Up for consideration. What do you think about that?
So brilliant gamesmanship here. Because if you're on an NFL defense, it's one thing where two quarterbacks kind of have the same skill sets and you're like, I'm preparing for one or the other. But I do think there's something to leaving that door open. I came away from that game the other day and I was like, yeah, Fields missed some throws, but he also gets you out of a lot of trouble that I don't think Russ can get you out of. You just started your the same offensive line for 2 weeks in a row for the first time all year, I believe. And then you lose Zach Frazier this week. It's too tough to call for me because I don't know what Russ looks like in practice. That's a tough thing for somebody from the outside to have an opinion that's informed on. But I can tell you that Justin Fields does give them an element of, when it's messy, we can get out of trouble. He's got to hit those throws when he's extending downs. I mean, they left some points on the board with him missing some throws that I know he can make. But at the same time, he also got you out of trouble in some situations where Max Crosby was almost wrecking the game early in the ball game. And so whoever it is, I like what you had to say, Rich, about the pressure. Sunday night is going to be immense on the Jets, certainly, but also on the Steelers. If they do go with Russ, that is the right decision, because here you are, a month and a half into the season or more, and you're saying we are not where I thought we'd be. We're ahead. Like, I don't think anybody thought the Steelers would be where they are right now. And that is, you can look at it two ways. Fields has been a part of that, or Fields has kept you from being even better. Even if they start Russ, I want to see Fields in some packages. I really do. Because he gives you a skill set that a lot of guys just don't have.
Do you think that might be the best course for the Steelers? I know that the axiom of when you have two quarterbacks, you really have none. But, in some ways, getting the neck up ability of Russ to go along with the physical skill set ability of Justin Fields and somehow leave it up to Arthur Smith to find the right blend, the right time to push those buttons. Do you think that's really a sustainable concept in the NFL in 2024, Chris?
I don't think it's sustainable in that you rotate quarterbacks, drive to drive. But I do think there are some ways that you can get an athletic quarterback involved in some packages that you sprinkle in and you keep people honest. I always used to say, like, if I were a coach in the NFL, I'd run Wildcat once a week. I'd sprinkle in something that's going to force, the defensive room that's preparing for me the next week to spend an inordinate amount of time on, a different package or a different run scheme or a different concept and I know this from experience, athletic quarterbacks keep defensive coordinators up at night. Even if they don't respect the quarterback, they respect the multiplicity of what an offense can give you. And so I think, like, at the very least, if Russ is your guy, you find ways to keep Fields involved. Because I do think he gives you something, and he's made some nice plays this year. The last 2 weeks, he's missed some throws and that sort of thing. But I also think that, considering the state of the offensive line at times, the Russ thing seems like a good idea. And then if you really think it through, are they ready to go back to having an immobile quarterback? It's a totally different style of play. We'll see.
I know, and I'm trying to go through your, my Rolodex, my mental, Rolodex of your career here. Obviously, when you were in New England, this wasn't an issue. And then when you were in Philadelphia, an injury was the reason why there was a quarterback switch, and obviously it put a ring on your finger. But I'm just wondering, how a locker room, if you're Tomlin, you keep a finger on the pulse of your locker room when, again, it's not like you're making this switch due to ineffectiveness, right? You're making a switch, if you do it, based on some sort of gut and feel that you would have to, right? You'd have to include the locker room's mood, sense, defensive side of the ball, all that stuff. Chris?
Yeah, he's a brilliant, manager of his team. Like, the guy's not a play caller. He's a head coach. And these are the decisions he lives and dies with. And, I think he's made enough of these to know how it's going to go over in the locker room. And I don't think he would make the decision if the locker room was opposed to it. I think that as a player, a position player, our jobs are so, we're in our own little silos, and ultimately we want what's best for the team. We're all going to have varying opinions on what's best for the team. When we went through that quarterback change in 2017, we didn't have a choice. Carson tore his ACL in LA. We win that game, we go in the locker room, we know what time it is. It just is what it is. And same thing happened in 2018 when Carson left with injuries that, he could have continued to play through. But for the most part, I think everybody understood that, he wasn't right physically. So this is a more complicated situation where a guy's gotten you off to a hot start. And as a result, maybe what you come away thinking is this is a decision that can affect our ceiling in a positive way, and maybe raise the floor. And I think maybe by raising the floor, you raise the ceiling for this team, the way they play. I think most importantly for them, they've got to be able to run the ball. And what Najee Harris did last week was really impressive. And, when you get Jalen Warren involved and Cordero Patterson, when this offense is at full strength, they do give you a lot of very, very complicated decisions you have to make. And Devontae Adams was a topic of conversation. Brandon Ayuk was a topic of conversation. Those guys aren't going to be walking through that door. So what kind of team do you have to be? You got to be able to run the football, and I need more out of the tight ends in the blocking game. You need to be able to block with Freiermuth, and you need to be able to get those guys involved in the passing game as well. And so I think Russ has seen a lot of football, and he's changed his game as time's gone on. He's got to play within himself. Remember that whole Broncos conversation when he was in Denver? He's got to get comfortable with taking the check down. And I think Arthur Smith, arguably one of the better coordinators he's probably played for. So that would be exciting in its own right. But, I would like to see some Fields too, if you're going to make that switch.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.